winning blueprint presents.
5 minutes or less. Pittsburgh Steelers.
Welcome. I'm your host, Lou. Thank you for joining me. We're going in 5 minutes or less with the Pittsburgh Steelers. Got 5 minutes on the clock. Here we go. The high point of the season for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Look, the Steelers are a team that you expect a lot from every single season. And they struggled at times this year. And you could point to Week 13 against Baltimore, come from behind victory with Charlie Batch at the controls as the high point of this season. If you're a Steelers fan, maybe that is the high point of the season for you. For me, no. Week 10 was the high point of the season for the Steelers. After starting the season 1-2, un-Steelers-like, you run off 5 victories in 6 games. You're sitting at 6-3. Everyone's talking about, here comes the Steelers. They're big and they're bad and they're back. And everything is looking up and up for the Steelers at this point. Culminating in that victory in Week 10 against the Chiefs on Monday Night Football. Now, that was an ugly game. And in that game, you lost Ben Roethlisberger. And that kind of turned your season around. But that was the high point. Beating the Chiefs, winning your 4th consecutive game, 5 out of 6, getting to 6-3, really starting to look more like the Steelers that we've come to know and love. That was the high point of the season for me. The low point of the season for the Steelers. Now, again, when you're the Steelers and you end up with an 8-8 campaign, there's a lot of low points in the season. But you still had a shot. Even though you had struggled all year long with consistency, you still had a shot in Week 16 to really go to the postseason. I mean, you beat Cincinnati at home and win your final game against the Browns at home, you're going to the postseason. You lost at home to Cincinnati, a team that you hadn't lost to since 2009, a team that hadn't beaten you at home since 2009, and you lost to the Cincinnati Bengals. 13-10. You did not play well. Ben Roethlisberger turned it over twice and was instrumental in that loss. And so that's the low point of the season because that game effectively ended your season. You weren't going to the postseason after that game. That's the low point of the season for the Pittsburgh Steelers. So you look at free agency activity for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And this is a year of house cleaning for the Steelers. So free agency activity for the Steelers, minimal. The reason it's minimal, Steelers don't have a lot of money. Right now, they're about $12 million over the cap, so they don't even have any space right now. But it'll be relatively easy for the Steelers to get under that number. That's not a big deal. The problem is that they are going to have to find a lot of guys to come in here and replace. They got a lot of guys that they got to get rid of, first and foremost. Guys that are free agents that aren't going to be back, and other guys that they're probably just going to cut ties with. Mike Wallace won't be back. This will be a different Steelers team is what I'm trying to say to you. Mike Wallace won't be back. Casey Hampton won't be back. Rashard Mendenhall won't be back. Then you have guys like Charlie Batch, Byron Leftwich, that are going to be free agents. Will they be back? Probably not. Max Starks, free agent, probably won't be back. A lot of guys that might not be back. Then there's James Harrison. Staff wants him back, has a huge cap number. Will he be back? Don't know. This is going to be a different looking Pittsburgh Steelers team. Just found out, though, that the Steelers have renegotiated the deal of Lawrence Timmons and is in the works of renegotiating the deal of Ben Roethlisberger. So that will give you some cap relief right there. But at the end of the day, all the gains that you make by getting rid of guys and restructuring deals is going to be minimal. You're not going to have a lot of money to play with in free agency. You're going to have to find some guys that can come in on some bargain basement deals and that can come in and help your team, essentially. So minimal will be the approach that the Steelers take in free agency. In the state of the fan base for the Pittsburgh Steelers, simple. Extreme optimism. Every year, if you're a Pittsburgh Steelers fan, you feel like you have a chance to win the Super Bowl. And that's every single year. You just come off an 8-8 season, and it'll be just as high as when you went to the AFC Championship game or you won in the Super Bowl the year before. That's how it is when you're a Steelers fan. You always think you have a shot to win. And until the Rooneys aren't in charge anymore in Pittsburgh, the Steelers will always have a shot to contend. As long as the Steelers are still the stable rock of a franchise that they've been for the last 2 decades, then they'll always have a shot. And if they always have a shot, the fan base will always be extremely optimistic. And so, you hear that sound in the background? That means that's been the Pittsburgh Steelers in 5 minutes or less.
Pittsburgh Steelers, 5 minutes or less.